Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my Dark Knights. It's the Bat Brand. How's it going? We're back, as you can see in front of you, a new tier list. I'm going to start trying and doing these every Wednesday if I can. New tier list video every Wednesday. And I want to try and do them for the meta, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta. Talk about the meta and what I believe the next big decks are going to be. But today we're actually going to do one based off of Duel Monsters, ranking the signature boss monsters for Duel Monsters. Basically everything you can think of is indeed in here. From Duel Monsters, we got Dreadsight, the Guiltia, to the Legendary Knights, to Luster Dragon number 2, to even Musician King for Johnny Steps, and even Orgoth the Relentless as well. So, we are gonna go through each one of these guys. They are ranked in S, A, B, C, and D tier. And I think the best way to start is to start with Air Knight Parshath. It is a D tier for me. Really didn't have a lot of impact. It didn't even have impact in the show, obviously. But for me, if you think boss monster, 1900 attacker, if that's your boss monster, that's not great. Barrel Dragon. Barrel Dragon's going to go very high for me. Barrel Dragon's an A tier. Just the fact is, like, the support he got in later Yu-Gi-Oh! And also, when this thing came out in the anime, freaking awesome. Bandit Keith is one of my favorite characters. And having a card like Barrel Dragon, that flip coins and chances and destroying cards. And then he gets that retrain in Desperado, which is just so much better. BLS. BLS. So here's a hot take. I love BLS. But I don't think BLS is deserving of an A tier. I think he's a B tier. Because he only came out twice in the anime, obviously. He's gotten tons of retrains in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. And as a boss monster, basic BLS is just a beater. But if you're looking at the other BLSs, like the extra deck one, the Link 3 BLS, that's the one to go for on that. Blue Eyes Toon Dragon. It's a disgrace to the original. I'm sorry. It's just a disgrace to the original BLS. And, or not BLS, Blue Eyes White Dragon. And then speaking of Blue Eyes, we're going to throw Blue Eyes obviously in S tier. Obviously, Blue Eyes... Blue Eyes is one of the coolest, if not one of the greatest boss monsters from Duel Monsters. And on top of that too, like, I mean, I love Blue Eyes. Blue Eyes, it has a lot of nostalgia for me, and honestly, out of all of them, Blue Eyes is the best. Moving on to Breaker the Magical Warrior. Breaker for me is deserving of an A tier, just because his effect is pretty good. Back in the day, where they put a spell counter on him, and then he could pop a spell and trap, and he looks amazing. Remember when he first came out in the anime, and he was beastly. He was really cool in the fight with Weevil. I think that was where we first saw Breaker. Buster Blader. Buster Blader, it's the ears for me. It's something with those little ears. Still deserving of a B tier, but I do love him as a boss monster, especially against dragons. He's very good against the dragons. Castle of Dark Illusions, D tier. Just the fact is, you're using a monster that has 1920 defense, and that's your boss monster? Yeah, that's not great. Celtic Guardian. Celtic Guardian. Celtic Guardian is deserving of a C tier, I would feel. Yeah, definitely C tier. Exodia. Exodia as a boss monster is at least A tier to me. To get him out is very difficult, obviously, but if you can, obviously you win the game if you get all 5 pieces. And in the anime, as a boss monster, he was the best in the entire series, but he just doesn't come to the level of Blue Eyes. Cyber Commander, D, there's nothing else that really needs to be said about that. Arcana's Dark Magician. So here's where I'm going to put Arcana's Dark Magician. I'm going to put him in S tier. And you may be amazed that Dark Magician Girl and Dark Magician, we're going to put Dark Magician Girl in A and Dark Magician in A. Because, listen, red looks so much better on that Dark Magician. I greatly feel that. It's like an evil Dark Magician, and honestly, I like that. Dark Magician Girl, I'm not a weeb. I love Dark Magician Girl, don't get me wrong, but I am not going to simp over Dark Magician Girl. I will simp over Lady Dimitrescu, but I will not simp over Dark Magician Girl. And Dark Magician, I mean, as a boss monster, yes, absolutely. But as a monster that I care for, not really. I'd much rather just the red one's so much cooler. Dark Necrofear. Dark Necrofear is S tier. Dark Necrofear is S tier. When that thing came out in the anime, it was freaking terrifying, and his effect was amazing. And as a boss monster, you banish 3 fiends from your grave, bring out Dark Necrofear, and then if it dies, it gets to take a monster and then attach itself to it, which I love. Deep Sea Warrior, that's a D. Diabound Colonel. Diabound is definitely going in probably A tier for me. I really did like how they introduced Diabound and then they put him in as a card in Yu-Gi-Oh! The actual TCG. And I love that Diabound Colonel has an official card in the anime. I really do like that. So he is at least A tier for me. Different Dimension Dragon, D tier. For sure. Divine Serpent Ge. So Divine Serpent Ge, when this thing came out in the anime, it had infinite attack. Now, granted, in the TCG, we don't get that, but this thing's a bomb to throw down, like in Yu-Gi-Oh! And throwing this out, and it's just the perfect stall card, really, with Ge. But Darts bringing this thing out was amazing. I really do think, like, honestly, it's deserving of B tier. It's the one boss monster, like, I mean, can you say there's a boss that has infinite attack? No. And that's what Ge had. Embodiment of Apopus, C tier. It would be in D, but just, I like the design of Apopus, and as a boss monster, it's alright. Exodia Necros. Okay, so this is a hot take. I put him in D normally, but I think I'm going to throw him in C just because, like, it's Black Exodia. Like, that's freaking cool. Gazelle, the King of Mythical Beasts. Now, I know there's new support for him coming out soon, so that is kind of factoring into my boss monster kind of thing. And I think, honestly, he's deserving of a B tier. At least a B, because if you have not seen the illusion, like, he's getting an archetype. Like, they're getting an archetype based off of him. So that's just freaking cool. 5-headed dragon. When this thing, as a boss monster, it's A tier, right? It has to be. It has to be A tier. Yeah, it's definitely a boss monster. It's A tier. It's 5k attack. And when it came out in the anime, like, that thing was terrifying. That the thing was huge. I mean, I'm kind of factoring in the TCG, the anime, and it is a boss monster, technically. So those are like the three factors. Flame Swordsman. I'm sorry, but he's 1800. And he's a normal monster. And I know in the anime he did a lot, but I don't think he's deserving of a C tier spot. The same with Guiltia. I do know his retrain is really good. For like a Joey style deck, so that's good enough. And also, Giant Soldier Stone is D tier as well. He's not good enough here as well. Along with Harpy, no, Harpy Lady Sister's least deserving of a C. But anyway, Fortress Whale. Fortress Whale, the whale's at least deserving of a C tier, I would feel. Yeah, at least a C tier. Let me put him in a freaking C. Okay, so yeah, at least C tier for Fortress Whale. And then Guy the Dragon Champion. We'll put Guy the Dragon Champion in B tier. Yeah, I like B tier. When he first came out in like the Duel against Weevil, I really did like his design, and then later in the TCG, got a whole archetype based around him and Curse of Dragon. Which, as a boss monster, it's literally the boss monster deck with him because it's just centered around him and him alone, which is cool. So yeah, he's definitely B tier. Definitely B tier. Gandora. So Gandora is just off his design and the boss monster-esque. I think he's deserving of A. But I think we are going to throw him in B tier, just like the top of B tier. Because if you negate this, he's just a 0/0 attacker. And yeah, that's not great. But when he comes out, like, this thing is a beast. In the anime, as a boss monster, in the anime for Little Yugi. Little Yugi finally got a boss monster in Gandora. And, yeah. This thing, and even in Dark Side of Dimensions, when this thing got a retrain, got a new version of himself, basically, it was beautiful to see come out. Gate Guardian. So we're also factoring in the new support Gate Guardian god as well, along with the other, with it in the anime. So, and just it as a boss monster, I think it's deserving of A tier, for sure, just because the support for it got a whole archetype based around the labyrinth and stuff like that, which was cool. The pieces for it, the lore, putting it together back in the day as a boss monster was unbeatable almost. And honestly, if you're making a boss monster, that's the thing to show off. That's the thing. It's 3750. So that's the biggest monster in here other than five-headed dragon. Egyptian God Slime. So Egyptian God Slime, I feel is deserving of S tier. Just because as a boss monster, it's amazing. And it's just I believe like it's very easy, very, very easy to bring out if you're playing like a Merrick deck, for sure. Or any Egyptian god deck, really. And his design is just beautiful. It's like a metallic slime obelisk. And honestly, I love that. I think that's cool. I still need that for my Egyptian god deck. But anyway, Guilford the Lightning. Or is this the Legend? I think this is Guilford the Lightning. No. This is Guilford the Legend. I think this is just Guilford. So Guilford is a boss monster. Guilford as a boss monster is deserving of as an A tier, I would say. At least if we're just talking dual monsters, then yes, he's deserving of an A tier. Guardian Death Scythe, just on its look alone, it's deserving a C tier. But as a boss, it is very good. And then Eatos is also deserving of a C tier as well. Harpy's Lady Sisters. So this is a hot take, but I'm gonna throw her in C tier and not higher just because it's 1950 as an attacker and as a boss monster from Duel Monsters era. That's not great. It's not great at all. But it still had its uses in the anime and stuff like that, and different things like that. And also Yatos and Death Scythe are in here, just because they aren't that great in the TCG. And as a boss monster, I mean, Yatos is good, but Death Scythe is very difficult to bring out. But in the regular, just like anime, they were really good, so that's why they're deserving at least not a D tier. Harpy's Pet Dragon. Harpy's Pet Dragon. That he'll go into a C with their parents. Hextrude, no, it had no interest for me. It was just a big booba'd lady. And yeah, I really didn't care much for it. Cubic. The Cubic Monsters. Nah, I did not like the Cubic Monsters. I did not. Now, as a boss monster, they're at least deserving of C tier because all of them were boss monsters. There's like 5 or 6 boss monsters thinking, this guy had. I forget what his name was. Insect Queen. So, Insect Queen, I think also is deserving of a C tier as well. If I can get him in there. Judge Man, D tier. Kaiser Glider, C tier. Luster Dragon number 2. It's a C tier for me. Magician King is a D. Nightmare Penguin. At least Nightmare Penguin has a good effect. Dual monster standards, so at least he's deserving of a C, I would say. At least. The Jinzo. Now, Jinzo's deserving of an A tier, I feel, but as a boss and back in the day with a lot of traps and whatnot, for me, Jinzo's S. Jinzo is an S tier and very much deserving of one. Just the fact is, like, as a boss, I mean, he was even a dual or deck master in the virtual world arc. So, I mean, that's how you know he's very good, and the fact is, like, he got a whole archetype later, several times. He got a retrain archetype, and then he got a regular archetype. So Jinzo was up there as one of, if not my favorite, or best boss monster in my mind for dual monster standards. Lava Golem. Lava Golem's still used today in the TCG. So yeah. Lava Golem as a boss monster, more of a kaiju than anything. I would at least put him in A tier, for sure. Just as it's a kaiju, and back in the day, you didn't have those, in Duel Monsters era. I think, you only had Lava Golem, so that was like the first monster that you saw that you could, if your opponent had big things, you could just get rid of 2 of them and eliminate them both and give it to your opponent. And back in the day, that was really good. The Legendary Knights. As boss monsters, no. As boss monsters, just no. I don't... I think if they would have just made them dragons, I would have liked them more. I would have liked them a whole lot more because I do like them as dragons. Now, if it's Timaeus, we're moving Timaeus up to B, because Timaeus was the coolest one out of the three. But Hermios and Critias, not so much. Pumpkin's deserving of a C tier, I would say. Super Robo Yarrow is a D tier. If your monster is a 1250 attacker, just no. Legendary Fisherman. Oh, wait. Is that the fusion for all the knights? It is. How about no? This as a boss monster, too, that's one of the toughest things to bring out in the entire freaking game. St. Joan. We'll put her there in D tier. Alright, so we have Mass Beast Asgardius. Mass Beast Asgardius is, to me, deserving of, I would say top C. To bring it out, you have to do specific things, and that's just not great in old Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards, or even any standard, really. The Mass Beast, I would have put that up a little more, because that's at least better. But to bring out the Mass Beast Asgardius is way too difficult. But as a boss monster, it's still good enough for C tier, for sure. Obelisk the Tormentor. Obelisk, of course, is going to S. All the Egyptian gods are deserving of S tier. Obelisk is my favorite, along with Ra. I mean, it's kind of like Ra, the way they changed Ra's look later, to give him more of a beak. It made him look more like a chicken. I didn't like that. Obelisk, though, he's just always stayed the same. And to me, Obelisk is my favorite Egyptian god now. And as a boss monster, it's an Egyptian god. That's why I like all of them. Let's throw Slifer and Ra up there as well. Slifer, Ra, they are both deserving of S tier, obviously. I probably should have put this up, but I'm doing this on my phone, so if I did that, it would be funky, and I don't want that. Let's go ahead and just go through the other little boss monsters. So Rocket Warrior, Robotic Knight is a D tier. As in a boss monster, no. Earl of Demise, it's a D tier. That's a 2000 attacker. As a boss monster, that's not great. Vorse Raider as a boss monster, no. Zolga as a boss monster. I mean, Zolga at least has an interesting ability, but as a boss monster, no. Strike Ninja. Strike Ninja as a boss. That's also... You know what? I'll put him in low C. Because he's at least deserving with the Pumpkin. Because he does have an interesting ability. I will give him that. Rocket Warrior. We'll also throw Rocket Warrior in the C tier as well. His invincible mode is actually pretty cool as a boss monster. Even if he wasn't really a boss monster in that deck. And in Duel Monster Standards, TCG-wise, he wasn't that bad either. So, moving on to Orgoth the Relentless. Now, Orgoth is at least worthy of B tier. In the TCG, it works perfectly for Duke because it's all dice effects, and he gets a different effect based on the dice roll. So, Orgoth is literally perfect for a Duke Devlin boss monster in the Duel Monsters anime. And as a boss monster, he's pretty decent. He's pretty decent if we're talking just Duel Monsters. So, Orgoth, B tier. Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. If we're talking bosses, he's at least deserving of a C tier. But he's not worthy of B because it's so difficult to bring out until later, where Pinch Hopper and some other stuff you could ignore its summoning conditions. And we're talking the retrain that came out recently in Photon Hypernova. It's deserving of a B tier for sure. I'm also factoring in all the retrains and stuff like that as well. Red Eyes. Well, Red Eyes, I know where Red Eyes is going. Red Eyes is for sure going in S tier. It's just something with the dragons for me. I think Red Eyes as a boss monster and all the different retrains it's got throughout its history are some of the best in the game, especially when it comes to Red Eyes burns. Blue Eyes is just pure power, and Dark Magician is spell and traps and negation and stuff like that. So, and being unaffected. So, and I like that with the three of them. I really do. I really do. And in the Duel Monsters, of course, is Joey's card. Why would you not appreciate that? Relinquished. Relinquished is deserving of S tier as well. Relinquished to me was one of the first ritual monsters that we saw in the anime. And it had a devastating effect. And if we're talking boss monster, and literally sucks up a monster and takes it. It's Link monster, same thing. It's literally that and on a Link monster. And whatever it's pointing to Link arrow-wise. Okay, cool. Whenever it's pointing to Link arrow-wise, and then its other retrains and Thousand Eyes Restrict back in the day, in the Duel Monsters era of the TCG and the anime, were some of the best in the entire game. So that is deserving of an S tier as well. Serpent Knight Dragon. Serpent Knight Dragon is least deserving of a C tier. Shadow Ghoul. Occasionally Shadow Ghoul can be pretty decent. And if we're talking the retrain as well for the Labyrinth archetype, not the Labyrinth archetype, but for the Labyrinth Wall Great Guardian archetype, it's actually pretty good. And if you're playing a thing like this, basically one of the first boss monsters Rebecca Hawkins had, so it got big and it gets big quick because it equals its attack to every monster in the grave. Shinado. Shinado is deserving of B. I would say deserving of B tier. I mean, Noah really didn't. I mean, it was his deck master. But as a boss, I mean, it really didn't hit home for me. Speaking of bosses, Silent Magician. Silent Magician is deserving of A tier to me. Just because it was the boss monster. There was level monsters, one of the first level monsters along with Silent Swordsman, which will go in A tier as well. And basically they just leveled up, and they had more than just the levels we got in the TCG. In the anime, they went up a level each turn, and you saw them get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And these two were the reason why little Yugi was able to beat Pharaoh, the Pharaoh. And as a boss monster in the TCG, they had their moments in the sun, I'll be honest. But in the Duel Monsters era, not so much. That's why they're stuck in A. But they're up there so high because of what they've done. Summon Skull. Actually, Shadow Wall, or Wall Shadow, go in the D tier. Well, actually, no. We'll put you in the C tier. Right next to your boy Shadow Ghoul, just because you got that retrain. And the same with Legendary Fisherman. We'll put Legendary Fisherman in C as well. We're almost coming near the end of this, actually. Thielen, no. Very difficult to bring out. in the TCG. In the movie, really didn't hit me at all. I didn't really care much for it. Um, and I understand it gets big, but like that's about it. Summon Skull though, Summon Skull. Summon Skull. I think at least is a boss monster. I mean, he takes one less tribute than Dark Magician, and he's the same attack. Yeah, he's deserving of a B tier. Mass Beast, the Mass Beast. Now this one is just a normal monster, but I think it's deserving of a B tier. I think it was a ritual, and it wasn't as hard to bring out as Desgardius, so but it's not going higher, so it's like right in the middle with the B tiers basically. Thousand Dragon as a boss back in the day, like in Duelist Kingdom, yes, but after that, not so much. Once he got Red Eyes and started using Red Eyes more, Thousand Dragon kind of hit the back. In the TCG, he's just a normal 2400 beater. So, not that much. Two-headed dragon. So, if we're talking Thunder Dragon as a whole, then if we're talking Thunder Dragon as a whole, including the newer Thunder Dragon support that they've gotten in recent years, it's deserving of A tier to me. If we're counting the later support they did get. If we're talking Thunder Dragon Colossus and Titan and just all the Thunder Dragons, that's deserving because all of them are bosses. Tyrant Dragon. Tyrant Dragon is cool. I like Tyrant Dragon. It was only used like twice. I think Rebecca used this as a boss in the Waking the Dragons arc, if I'm not mistaken. And this thing, if we're talking dragons, this thing just looked like a regular dragon. Basic dragon. And really, it had a pretty good effect. It was 2,900 attack, I believe, as well. So, nothing to scoff at back in the day. The Valkyries. Okay, so the Valkyries aren't the greatest, but they're least deserving of a C tier. I would feel. I mean, they were in a filler arc, so like, and in the TCG when we got them, they weren't really played at all either. So, I mean, but cool archetype. I'm not gonna lie. Vampire Lord is also deserving of C tier as well. Vampire Lord had some really good stuff back in the day when it come to TCG, and then of course with the effect that he could come back again. You know what? No, we're moving him up to B tier because of the TCG and in as a boss monster, it with his effect, pretty good. Valkyrian the Magnet Warrior. Valkyrian, he was very difficult to bring out, but if we're talking his support, it made him easier to come out, and he was a boss when he came out. 40, I think, was he 3,800 or 4,500? No, he's 4,500 and 3,800 defense. That's right. That's huge for a monster. That's absolutely freaking huge. Now, granted, back in the day, it was more difficult to bring out, but today's standards in the TCG, there's a guy he plays, a friend of mine that plays Magic Wars. I'm looking forward to play against him with this and see how he can bring out Valkyrian a lot easier with that. And we're down to our last two. So, Zara the Mont, listen, this is a hot take. This is a very hot take. But I love the way Zara the Man looks. I love the way Zara the Man is. And when it came out, they made it seem like it was a huge boss monster. And Bandit Keith used it. Okay? I thought this was a better card for Bandit Keith as a boss. Next to Barrel Dragon. I think if Barrel Dragon and Zara the Mont, the two of them, instead of Zoa, you literally could use this as a fiend. I think it's deserving of S tier. I really do. I think like Barrel Dragon is like right below it. Very close, I feel, but like these it's close, but Zeradamont for me as a boss, the look, the way it looked, it's a ritual monster, so it's actually my favorite ritual monster, and it's just the color. It's just a color for me. It just looks like that's a thing that like you see that thing glowing in the dark and it would just look amazing. Last but not least, XYZ Dragon Cannon. So XYZ Dragon Cannon, with its support in the TCG, the stuff that we got, and different stuff like that. In the anime, Kaiba used it a lot. And not just Kaiba. Later in GX, Chaz used it and turned it into something way bigger. And I think that's deserving of A tier as well. But I'm making, and it also had a very decent effect with all three of them. Now, if we're talking all of the combinations, it's just an A. But if we're just talking just it's almost an S for me. It's almost an S. So, that is pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the tier list for boss monsters. If you want to see me do more of these tier lists, let me know. This was a longer one, but we will be doing one, if I can find one, with the tier lists for the best decks for the meta going forward and Yu-Gi-Oh! After the June 5th ban list. So, but yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you guys had different opinions, let me know down in the comments down below. I'd love to hear yours. And let's have a debate. But let's also realize this is my opinion. And do not, like, get all butthurt over it. I'll say that. But anyway, hope you all enjoyed. And as always, stay awesome at Dark Knights.